Guten Tag guys, before we get into the tips, just a very short motivation on why I feel like I have something to say. My aim is not good at all, consistently inconsistent with bursts of absolute blindness is what I would call it, and still I'm 5-star with a 1.3 KD most of the time. And I also just got 6-star for the first time. Now let's get into the tips. Imagine you and your partner are running through the woods between compounds, chatting, sharing a laugh or two. One of you hears something. Enemy hunters. You all stop. No more running. No more chatting. Enemies are near and you need to sneak up on them. As quiet as you can. You sneak from one tree to the instant headshot. Good rule of thumb, if neither you nor the enemy team was especially loud, most of the time, if you heard them, they heard you. You might think that being still can make them think no one is near, but if you are between compounds without good cover, being sneaky mainly makes you an easy target. Stopping for a second or two to listen better is fine. But as I can tell you from experience, suddenly crouch walking after sprinting through the mud to be sneaky worked out a grand total of never. If one team killed monsters or aggroed animals, different story. But in general, if you hear them, they heard you. If there is a zombie or a hive 30 meters away, you don't need to kill it. If there is a horse you can avoid, you don't need to kill it. If there is a chicken coop that is not aggroed, you don't need to burn it. Hell, even if these fuckers are gaggering around, you don't need to kill them. Killing AI takes time, so everything that you kill that you could have just run by takes time. Time you could have used to get to the next compound and be in a better position than the enemies. Also, killing is loud. So if you don't have to, why do it? Especially when it comes to dogs and chickens. The fire itself is pretty loud, so avoiding them is best in many cases. And once they aggroed, if someone is near, they heard you. If not, why bother killing them? Also keep in mind that the animals will be loud sometime after you leave, so people might think you are still there, even if you moved on. Wasting a tool just to burn a cage is a bad move, and no one waits for the fire to be gone just so they can climb in and get the knife back. And I should not need to say this, but shooting your gun is way louder than chickens or dogs ever could be. Don't. Only time it makes sense is when you're already in a fight and the stealth is no option anyways, then burning the cage so you can listen better makes sense. What sucks more than being headshotted? Being bodyshotted because you ran out of meds. Of course, that doesn't happen in every game, far from that, but when it does, boy is it annoying. And often it's preceded by another annoying thing. Looting X instead of a medkit. If that thing is a consumable because you used your shots or your throwables already, I guess it's just bad luck. But when you get throwing knives, axes or flares back, this could have been avoided. If there is no need for it, don't kill armored or hives with flares, and don't throwing stuff where you cannot get it back. Wasting your consumables is bad, but not because of the same reasons as with the tools. Here you don't worry about not getting back a medkit if you need it. Here you worry about not having your consumable when you actually needed it. Most commonly we're talking about white shots when a medkit would have done, though this mostly happens in a stressy situation and is therefore hard to change, and explosives thrown when there was no need for them at all. One of my buddies does this so often that this tip is pretty much all due to him. If your mate is fighting with enemies at 50 meters and you yeet your frag into the nearest bush, it really doesn't help your mate. Explosives are helpful if you know where enemies are or if you're aggressively pushing. If you are fighting at mid-range, a dynamite thrown in the middle really does nothing else than rob you of it later. Your teammate is down and it's a 1v1. You tag the enemy. What should you do? Try and get the kill, or get your mate up while the enemy heals? Answer: doesn't matter. If you're gonna take a shot, do it. If you're gonna rush after the tagged hunter, do it. If you're gonna res mid-fight, do it. The worst thing you can do is to hesitate and waste time. Now me personally, I would try and get the res in most situations, but trying to finish the job is fine too. Just don't half-ass it, where you kind of try to kill, but just a bit, and you also stay with your mate to res, but you don't really. So you end up with a healed enemy and a mate still down. Pretty straightforward. If there's a situation where the chance of getting a kill is high, but the chance of getting killed equally or more so, maybe don't take it. For example, re-peeking after both you and your opponent ate the long shot ammo. I guess if you are a very good shot, you might take the gamble. But in most cases, not getting a kill is not as bad as being killed. For me, the risky move I make the most often is going up into towers. I always know it's risky, sometimes I make a kill or two, but I get shot and killed way more than that. To be honest, this tip is probably the one with the most exceptions. Sometimes a trade would be fine. Say if you're up 3-1 and your trade would win the fight. Or when you could easily get picked up if you're downed. Or maybe you just want to make a sick move so that you can feel a vague resemblance of happiness you haven't felt in years. But in most cases, stay safe and just think back to when you were a kid and everything was still hunky-dory. A shotgun in a house doesn't mean you win. 2 long ammo tags doesn't mean you kill. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Full health doesn't mean you stay alive. Don't engage too cocky. As we all know, pride comes before the fall, which sounds way less cool than Hochmut kommt vor dem Fall. Now some of the pro hunters might disagree with getting a res as soon as possible. I might too if I could solo trios as easily as Neo or take shots like Rakta. But I can't, and most likely you can't as well. And just like squat jerking or training Bulgarian is not a good choice for you, so is trying to single-handedly win. Of course, a res is dangerous in many cases, but if you know that they don't have a line of sight, go for the res. Your mate getting downed again right away is a possibility, of course, but in many cases, once you're down a bar, it sucks anyway. So as long as you stay safe during the res, it's worth it. And in my experience, risky reses pay off way more often than they should, especially if you commit. Now, even if you don't go for an insta-res, staying somewhat close to your downed body is a good idea. Of course, this depends greatly on the situation and the distance to partner. But in many cases, staying close to your dead partner is helpful. First up, the enemies cannot easily burn your body, which means you're not on a timer. But more importantly, if you get a tag or a kill, or the enemies move and have no line of sight, you can res your body. Maybe sometimes you feel like staying close puts you in a bad spot. But oftentimes, even if you leave, you have to go back into the bad position. Just now with added stress due to a burning mate and no ability to pull off a quick res. If someone gets downed, chances are the enemies push closer, but this often means that they cannot cover their body for a few seconds, and this might be enough time to get your body up. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying you should stay directly next to your dead partner, but just somewhat close, and if that doesn't work, try to have line of sight to him so that you can kill anyone who tries to burn him. Or her. Knife rush, or any melee rush for that matter, are very, very effective. Don't shy away from them just because someone has fanning or a shotgun. Now, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting you double your shift into shotguns with your knives out. But if you're caught in a shitty situation, your melee tool might be a good option. Shotguns are good at close range, but at very, very close range, melee is king. Also, a lot of players get very nervous when getting knife rushed. Sure, they might have a shotgun, but that don't help if you miss. And the knife never misses. Okay, it does, but not as often. Instead of explaining, I will show you. Generally, your opponent's explosives have a chance of hitting somewhere here. If he has pitcher, maybe somewhere here. Of course, depending on the part of the map you're in and the cover present, things can change a lot. But there are 2 good ways, one meh way and one shitty way of handling an explosive. The 2 good ways are pretty simple. Run straight away from the enemy or straight to him. If you can run out of this circle, you're good in terms of explosives. And if you rush to him, and he's not willing to damage or kill himself with the explosive, you also most likely will not get hit. Now, the meh way depends very much on what happened before and how much your opponent knows. And it's just not moving. If he doesn't know where you are and he has to guess, there's a good chance he wastes his explosives. The downside is that if he knows where you are most likely dead. And now the worst way of handling it, in my opinion, is running sideways, because you're still in his explosive radius, let's say, and now that you're running, he knows where you are. Picking up the token and seeing your name glorified in front of a grand audience of up to 11 other players. And not just that, but getting 5 seconds of legal wallhack. What a wonderful experience. Until you realize that now you have a permanent target on your back and you can pull off no more sneaky flanks, nor raise your mate with necro unless you feel like losing all your boost. I am not whatsoever suggesting that you leave the bounty on the floor and camp in the layer to get a kill when someone else tries to pick it up. This is a coward tactic and also boring. Do something, be active. If you know there will be a fight, then maybe delay picking up or at least have one of the team without the bounty. In many cases, the dark side doesn't tell you much more than footsteps could. And remember, you have 5 seconds per token of boost, but you can be tracked unlimited, even if not that accurate. And if you pick up the bounty, don't spam your seconds too fast, like certain players like to do. Not saying any names. Like Nino. A good rule of thumb is only scan if you're about to make a move. If you sit in the boss layer, there is really no reason to scan. If someone approaches, you can hear them, so only scan if you are about to go out and do something. Once you're in the open, scanning periodically to make sure you're not being ambushed out of a bush is a good tip too. But if you're in a safe position, you don't need to check every 30 seconds. This one is really not a tip, but here we go. There are some playstyles that most players despise. Psycho Ghost likes to say that you bought the game and you don't owe anybody a playstyle. And to a certain extent, yes, but also no. You're engaging with other people. So I think there are some rules and hence some playstyles you owe other people. For example, not being an ass and insulting the team you just killed, or not backstabbing someone once you made a deal to split the bounty. Just be a decent person. But beyond that, I think you also owe the others to play in a way that is not insanely annoying. Totally fine if you disagree with me on that part, but I feel like if 90% of players think a playstyle is despicable and even the devs are trying to make a mechanic to counter it, I think that we can all call that a bad playstyle. Mainly hard camping, but I think never coming closer than 100 meters with your long ammo sniper is just as annoying, because both these playstyles slow down the game immensely. I don't judge the loadout, I judge the playstyle. Play your sniper, play to your strengths, but please don't sit 150 meters away and aim at the same door for half an hour. Play your shotgun, trap up the place, but do not sit in one corner and aim at the same door for half an hour. To be honest, I don't see either of these very often in the 5-star lobbies, but might be more common on higher as well as on lower elos, at least from what I read on Reddit. Now, with all that being said, these are just my tips for you to help you get better at the game, but at the end of the day, it's a game, so getting better should not always be the focus. It's absolutely fine to go in there, make some stupid decisions, and just have fun with your friends. I wish you happy hunting, and see you in the bayou. This was Verhead. Thanks for watching.